Good morning. My name is Tony Kleiner from Streaming Media Magazine. This panel is monetization and video advertising formats. Here's the guys here. Over here, first off is Ollie Newton, head of emerging platforms at Starcom. Next to him is Dan Roos, Vice President Europe of Tremor Video. And next to him, Stan Cigar from Rich Media and Video Business Manager at DoubleClick. And down on the end is Keith Zubkevich, Vice President and Market Development and Operations at Conviva. So thank you and welcome to all of you that came here today. Gentlemen, take a minute and introduce yourselves and what you do.
Hi. So emerging platforms at Starcom MediaVest. For many people, it's kind of like, what the hell does that mean? Which is both good and bad. I suppose it's all about kind of helping our clients and agency teams think a bit broader about the type of technology they should be using in client solutions. I suppose at the moment the three kind of pillars are probably video, mobile, and gaming.
Hi, Dan Roosh from Tremor Video. Tremor Video is a global provider of online video technology and media solutions for publishers and advertisers. On the advertiser side, we offer analytics that give insight into not just when campaigns perform, but how, what, why, and where. And so it's really trying to understand why campaigns perform the way they do. And of course, we use media as a way of getting the analytics. And so the other side of our business is a media business where we monetize interactive and linear video content for publishers.
Stanislas Sagar, so I'm business development manager for the video and mobile solution at DoubleClick, so the tech branch of Google. Our aim and focus is really to help publishers in their direct sales force to increase their revenue coming from video advertising, whether it's from smart targeting, delivery of new formats, efficiency analysis on their reporting, but as well on their forecasting. So we do provide the full list of solutions to address the needs on all the platforms.
My name is Keith Zubkevich. I'm the Vice President of Market Development Operations for Conviva. Conviva is a real-time complete audience monitoring and control platform over the top of the internet. So what we do is we essentially track every second of every viewer's experience from player load all the way to video complete with a both reporting solution on the front end and then an automation decision engine on the back end that resolves those problems and clears. So we track and fix problems of video on the internet.
All right, thank you. We were talking earlier, and one of the things that really stuck out is, what do you see as some of the fundamental issues that are affecting the monetization of all this video that's out there? Anybody, just hop in there.
I'll take the first shot, 'cause I think part of what Conviva does is there's this an enormous ad market available on digital assets on the internet today, and one of the things that's surprising to me is the level of intelligence you can take as you look at your campaigns and performances. But one of the things that Conviva does, our core value, is really at a very low level. And what if I told you right now 10% of your audience had a player load problem and never started the video, 10% of the ads didn't play, and then 30% of your audience, once the video started, went into buffering and left. So as you talk about monetization and experience, the number one problem affecting monetization today that's preventing, or at least is a real erosion in video monetization, is just the experience itself. And that while digital offers a tremendous amount of promise to video and content owners, it also offers complexity and challenges that normal broadcast doesn't have. For example, if I watch TV, my TV never goes into buffering. So I watch videos and I watch TV all the way through. On the internet, it's a very real problem that prevents ads from being played from the start, but then also as the experience starts to go, 30%, we do 1 billion streams a month, 30% of videos on the internet have quality impacted views. Of those 30%, they watch 40 to 80% less of that video asset. And then of those people, they come back 1 view less a month. Now you do the math on that and you say, well, what does that mean to my monetization? Just fixing that problem alone can add 15, 20, 30% to your top line before you ever get into, you know, more targeting, contextual advertising. Just fixing what falls on the floor is a very real problem today. So that's the one thing that we, as a company, we fix. And then we work with the Tremors and the double clicks on how to take that now complete audience picture and complete monetization picture and then add to it and take it up from there.
Any thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, I think the devil's advocate to that is the U.S. Online video ad spend last year was $1.4 billion. UK was about 60 million pounds, and it's growing 100% year over year. It's growing fast. I'm not sure there's a monetization problem. I think there's opportunities for improvement, and those exist in any market. But with the market conditions the way they are, online video growing 40% year over year in the US and 100% year over year in the UK, I don't know how much more we can ask for. I do think there are things that we can do, and so I think where we are today is probably 3 years after the 728 by 90 and the 300 by 250 and the 160 by 600 were introduced as the standard display ad formats. And what happened before that was sort of the, in the US we call it the Wild West of advertising, where every supplier was offering different formats to try and differentiate themselves. And it was only until the industry ubiquitously adopted these formats that you really started to see a substantial, significant amount of investment. We are right there today, 15 years later, with VAST. We're on 2.0 now, and VPaid. We are trying to come up with standards. We know, here's what we know. We know we want to have interactivity online. We know we want to take advantage of the internet and the interactive nature of the web. We don't know what the best format is. And so at Tremor, we release a new interactive format probably once a quarter. YouTube and the guys at DoubleClick are working on their own interactive formats. The guys at Publicis have the Pool Project, which is trying to define the right interactive format there. We all need to agree. But it's a good exercise, and it's a healthy one to have us all sort of experiment and together as an industry come up with the right one. And it will take time. It's not something that will happen overnight. It'll probably take another couple of years. But again, right now we have a supply issue. We've got not enough quality video content to invest in. Not a, there's really no inhibitions that we have in terms of pushing investment into space.
I agree with that, and I think also adding from a kind of agency and sort of brand client perspective, one of the core issues and one of the biggest questions that any big brand will ask is, what is the incremental reach that online video is giving to my TV audience? And at the moment, very few agencies are able to, and media owners are able to answer that one properly. It's still a place that needs a lot more research into it. And we're starting to make good breakthroughs back at our place, working with kind of the guys around the table, and getting that understanding to say that actually we can make your audience better. This is how we drive the money more efficiently. But alongside that, you've got everything that Dan was talking about, which is, do we even know what the right format is yet? Do we know that a pre-roll is the final answer? Probably it isn't. The stage that we're at the moment is we're kind of just overlaying what works for us on TV, what works for us in different channels, rather than having defined what that new solution will be. And I guarantee in sort of 5 years' time, we'll probably look back at pre-rolls as that was very much the entry level, but by no means the final solution.
We were talking earlier about metrics, brand lift, and how the money is flowing from the broadcast area into the online area. How do you guys measure that, and what does the potential look like in the next couple of years for all that money moving to online?
So I think Ollie and I were just chatting about this. I think it's really an agency question, because agencies do control the at least conversation with the client in terms of what is the right metric. My perspective on it is that it's our job as an industry to come up with the right metric. What is the right KPI for online video? We know that the click is the wrong metric. We haven't come up with exactly what is the right metric, because there's probably multiple, depending on a client's goals. It's probably some blend of pushing products off shelves to brand lift to engagement to time spent. It's more than likely a branding medium, but there could be direct response metrics involved. What we've done to date is we've looked at the broadcast sector as a proxy of what we want to accomplish, because there's 3 to 4 billion pounds of investment in the UK and there's 80 to 90 billion dollars in the US, and in the online video space we want to attract those spends. So what we've done is we sort of modeled, we've looked at how those spends are transacted, and we're starting to try and walk and talk and act like that. And so we're offering ways for buyers to demographically target online video the same way you buy ABC One males in the UK on broadcast. The problem with that, though, is it only gets us a quarter of the way there. It gets the money into the space, but it's using targeting methodologies that are a couple of decades old. Once you're in the online space, what we've missed is the opportunity to really measure fundamentally what is going on with the consumer to brand relationship. Why are users choosing to watch pieces of content? Why are users choosing to abandon other pieces of content? Are demographics really important, or is geography or time of day or day of week or the content it's adjacent to or what the user was doing before more important than demographics? And so those are sort of the questions that we need to start answering. But again, this is all a process and a time thing. It's going to take a while. There's client education. Part of what Ollie's job is to go and talk to the Samsungs and the Rims of the world and Heineken and explain what the power of online video can really be.
Stan, coming from DoubleClick, I would imagine you have some background in metrics and how the brands get lifted and all that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, actually, what we've seen is that, at first, like a few years ago, CTR actually is still a very heavy metric, unfortunately, for the video. And when I say unfortunately, is because when we talk about video advertising and monetization, it's not only about the CTR, it's really about the branding effectiveness, so the time to view the ad. You might have a medium CTR with a very low view of video ads. So today the publishers and advertisers are still looking at what is the real measure they should be looking at depending of the objective of the campaign. So definitely the TrueView format on the time-based analysis is something that advertisers are taking more into account, as well as publishers. Yet we're not going to be on the same model as on TV. But this is definitely one metric we are looking, and advertisers are looking. Even though CTR is still a very, very good metric because it's like 3 to 10 times higher than normal display.
I recall Keith and I were talking about, how the fundamentals can really affect the brand lift. I think you offered a couple of examples on a couple of companies. You don't have to mention their name, but how that affected just curing the pipe problem.
Yeah, I mean, I can't underscore it enough that as the advertisers and the ad space itself tries to hone in on exactly both standard as well as value of the eyeball, I think the biggest thing that content owners, everyone in this room and everyone in this show, has to keep in mind is it's your assets that are going to drive any of those conversations, and that it's the experience that's really going to drive monetization, right? In the end, you can tune and you can be more efficient in the ad placement game, but if people aren't watching, or people are watching less and less and less because the experience just isn't good, that's really where the money is, I believe, in the content side. And so we have today in the U.S. Roughly 84 different major media brands. We have all the top media companies in the U.S., and one of them is one of the top 3 broadcasters in the U.S. We went in, we turned on the reporting solution and saw the problems that existed in their delivery. We turned on our automation service, which is a midstream switching product that clears buffering. We can go into that at another time. But just fixing the buffering problem with a company that had 4 mid-rolls dropped $3 million a year to their company. That's not doing anything else. That's not changing out an ad placement. That's not changing out what was played in a pod, going from a 15 to a 30, none of that. Just creating an environment where viewers watched longer and watched more was a $3 million addition to their business. So it's real money. It's something that if you look at the brand itself, you're talking about Fox, NBC, BBC, B-Sky, those are brands. And people come to those brands based on the experience that they have. And if it's a low quality experience, the CPMs aren't going to be there because the viewers aren't going to be there. you create a high quality experience and you get the eyeballs, you drive a lot of the different metrics that the advertiser is going to look for just by doing that.
I mean, I think undoubtedly get the experience to work and people will flock to it. You know, that's why iPlayer is so far ahead of everyone else with kind of the online viewing experience in the UK. But, you know, bringing it back to kind of the more commercial side of it, you know, so many brands at the moment are simply just taking a TV ad and overlaying it onto a web space. It's a completely different experience for the viewer. You know, there's so much more opportunity, yet at the moment, the majority of brands are failing to take advantage of that. You know, some of the best examples we've seen coming out of our place are probably in with Foster's, where, you know, Foster's kind of bringing back some of the great kind of comedy characters of sort of 10, 15 years ago, people like Alan Partridge and stuff, and actually filming online exclusive content. But nowhere near enough brands are doing that kind of thing. It's simply, you know, that point I made earlier of rehashing something that worked on a historic channel, in this case TV, and just hoping that it works in this new medium. And we need to move away from that.
We spoke earlier of standardization. I know you kind of hit on that a little bit, but how important are standards in this whole advertising realm? As I was investigating this for something I was doing yesterday, it's an incredibly complex scenario, as I could tell. What are the best interactive formats that you've seen so far, and what do you think is going to be coming in the future?
I think before even getting into what are some of the best solutions out there, it's worth kind of really hammering home that point that simplicity is what drives money. If you think the majority of money is coming from agencies, the majority of people within the agencies who are controlling the budgets are undoubtedly phenomenally overworked. If my paymasters are hearing me. But, you know, they just do not have time to probably explore as deeply as each individual solution needs to make the right solution for the client. And you end up kind of doing, you know what, this worked for me, I kind of understand this, I'll stick with what I know. And so unless it can be as easy as possible for the agency guy to make it happen, you know, things end up falling by the wayside. And you guys will see that from your perspective as well, I imagine.
Yeah, I think it's a shame because it's true, right? So if you think the guys controlling the budgets are agency buyers who are time poor and need to get a lot of spend out the door in a low risk, high efficiency way. And so experimenting with high touch, very engaging interactive formats is actually something that we've seen, and the guys at Starcom and MediaVest have actually been very receptive to some of the work that we've done together. But they are one-offs, they are tests. Now they're big tests, but they're tests. And until we as an industry come up with a mainstream, we're all going to move in this direction, we know when we want it to be interactive, here's how it's going to work, and by the way, here's how it's going to work on mobile because layering is different in HTML5, which is a whole other conversation to have there. We as an industry need to give the agency something that they can all understand quickly, easily, and execute on, that you can do at scale.
One thing in terms of standard, which is really important, is on the tech side, because we can define two types of, when we talk about standards, is first there's the tech side, but there's also the formats, which you really talked about. Formats, let's say, are still on the testing phase. There's plenty of format, and it depends which publisher is going to be, which standards is going to be applying to which publisher at some point. But we definitely need to ease the work here between the publishers and the agencies, as well as the advertisers. But on tech side, what is also important, and what actually the market has been working on, is all these vast standards and VPage standards, which already is a very important piece of work to ease the full ecosystem in terms of advertising, as everyone is speaking the same language, as whatever technology they are using to deliver their ads. And this is one key point as today. We have all the same metrics, whether we are advertiser, agency, publisher, so we can really talk the same language. After which format is the standard or not is not going to, is an important one, but at least we know it can be delivered and followed and report correctly with the same and on the standard way.
And VAST has made a huge impact from an agency perspective. We've seen it with traditional online, we've seen it with mobile, and video is the next one. You kind of need that sort of magic triangle in place of speed, cost, and standardization. Once you get all three of those, then suddenly it can take off.
How is the cost of all this and the scalability affecting its adoption? We spoke earlier of the long tail, and how do they afford that? Where is the money actually in the cost structure in all of this? Or how does the cost structure affect what you're doing? And we'll talk about money.
I think it's just it's about the cost. The problem with video, I think what you're getting at is that it's more expensive to host video content than it is to host text or display content. So video requires production costs, it requires hosting, it requires a CMS, it requires a sales team to sell the inventory. The good news is that the CPMs in video are a number of multiples higher than display, but it really just becomes a question of how valuable is your content, how much do you have, and at what point do you reach critical mass where you can sell it effectively and make money on it after all the fixed cost of production and hosting and serving. And so I think that's where Tremor fits in, right? So Tremor's business is in providing monetization solutions for publishers, and we have probably 8 direct competitors in the UK and 15 to 20 indirect competitors in the UK, all trying to solve the exact same problem, which is how do we provide value to publishers in a way that is in brand safe ways that make sense for agencies to support the cost of creating all that content, because it is expensive.
I would imagine that there's probably many in our audience that are doing a lot of user-generated content. Is there potential for good advertising and user-generated content? Is there something that we're just at the very beginning of that? Is there anything that shows that that might be profitable down the road?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the trends that we're starting to see come out, and it's coming from Australia, the US, and there's a few in the UK kind of cropping up, is this idea of kind of taking one of our campaign briefs and almost putting it out to the community, and framing it around competition, but saying, you know what, here are the campaign parameters, here's what we want from it, go forth, create something, and we reward the top 5, but also, and fairly decent rewards to these people, kind of picking up 10 grand or so. But also, more than that, actually giving them exposure. So we then take their ad and we say, we'll make that into a national TV campaign, or the global online campaign for them. So definitely user-generated content when it is controlled, and control is the crucial word in that, because still a huge number of clients get very, very scared when you mention a proposition of UGC to them. Everyone just kind of automatically thinks of nightmare scenarios, and rightly so, because brands that have got it wrong have been absolutely destroyed by it. But if you can start to have enough control and enough respect from your audience, the ones who are actually doing it for you, then it can be very, very good for you.
Stan, any thoughts on that from the DoubleClick side?
Well, I will follow what Oli just said. And from the UGC part, it's really, and actually it's whether it's UGC or even it's premium content. Everything needs to be properly organized. Today we are in a really mature market on video. Publishers actually have the tool to be able to organize very precisely their premium content inventory as well as the long tail. So when we talk UGC, it's not only very poor content, it can be very high level content, as Oli was saying. And this is, the matter is really to identify and be able from the publisher's perspective to create value on this content. And this is really about getting the right tools at some point to make sure that they can target the right data and the right brands, and offer to the brands actually the best exposure on this UGC.
It seems that educating the market is really one of the prime things that needs to be done. How do each of you go out and do that? How do you get with publishers? How do you let them know that this is different than broadcast? And what do you do to make that happen? I think that's a very interesting point of how you educate an entire market that's been living in broadcast for their entire lives.
Well, I mean, the agency perspective is, we have numerous kind of team education, evangelism style events. We had Dan and the guys in, probably about 6 months ago, where just in our agency we have kind of like a regular sort of digital wonderment type of session where we bring in people like Tremor and sort of say to them, don't give us the standard kind of pitch, but actually have a think about, you guys are the experts in video, so what can you kind of impart upon our team that sort of opens it up to them and makes them think a bit differently about it, and really starts to hammer home why they should be investing in that space, and and then from that we start to really see, what actually separates it from broadcast, because some of the amazing things that we can do in V-Choice and other formats, you can't even begin to think about doing that on TV. Even when you start to think about with a connected TV, the connected TV is essentially just bringing that online functionality onto the standard TV screen. So for us, evangelism, education, just really just having people kind of say, wow, kind of that's pretty cool, I want to be doing that, just trying to inspire them to think a bit differently.
I think from a Conviva perspective, one of the things that we do is we really want to turn the lights on. I mean, if you think about your business today, and if you stopped and thought about, do you really know what every single audience member is doing every single second as they consume your content? And so with our customers, I think the number one value that we do, at least in our steps and our methodology, is get a complete picture. Get a real-time, complete audience, every second view of what's going on, from player load all the way through ad performance, ad play, exit, all the way to video start, all the way through to the completion of the video. And it's amazing the things you can learn, because it's not just about a single experience, it's also when you start to look at your content. Because the internet offers a unique thing when someone blogs, right? So you talk about long tail, and maybe something's on and it starts to get older. Well, someone may blog it. You look at Saturday Night Live, where you have these resurgence of clips, just because they may, someone may write a blog about it, and all of a sudden, 1 million people go back and say, oh, I'd like to see that clip again. So you have this situation where real time becomes critical, because while you want to be able to predict your business, unfortunately, there's no way you can. So the next best thing to predictability is real time. And to be able to see the performance of your content real time, so that as you get to the end of the long tail, someone blogs in a major media blog, and all of a sudden now you have another 1 million viewers. To be able to monetize that is critical. And the only way to do that is to see it as it happens. And so what we do is we turn on the lights, say, look, get a real-time perspective of your audience. Learn from the complete, but then also as you go forward, learn from the real time. Be able to make decisions as they happen.
And do they change their campaigns based on real time? Can they do that like immediately?
Absolutely. They can change their ad calls, right? Our system is an automated system that allows you that as content hits certain thresholds, you can set thresholds that say if it exceeds PCV or it exceeds number of views, you can change the ad call. Absolutely.
Definitely. I mean, real time is an unbelievably fundamental part of optimization.
Okay. We have a media company in the U.S. today that has a policy threshold that basically goes out, and as they sell their ad campaigns, they actually will make commitments on number of PCVs that it will be aired on, or number of eyeballs that will be seen in a given period of time. And that's real money, because they charge more for that, as opposed to just saying, I've got a bunch of assets and a bunch of eyeballs. I can actually give you a guarantee that it will be seen by 100,000 people in one day, or 100,000 PCVs simultaneously. And there's real dollars there, as opposed to just like a house remnant ad that just plays over any video that they might have. So,
getting back to mobile for a second, is that even a really suitable platform for advertising, given the complexity of the layering and putting everything out, or is that just a way that you would get back to your connected TV, as maybe Ian was saying in his keynote this morning? What are some of the real stumbling blocks in in mobile with all the different phones, etc.?
Your biggest stumbling block is all of the different standards that exist across it. So, you know, even if you just think, okay, I'm going to focus just on the Android space, you know, there are still, you know, so many different elements within Android. You know, there isn't a standard screen size, for example. There isn't. Not everyone has the same version of Android. I think in the UK we've probably got about 5 or 6 different versions out at any one time. Yes, a lot will start to migrate to probably the 2 or 3 most recent ones, but you know, even within that, you're going to have kind of different quality issues. But you know, mobile is unbelievably important as not just a future model, but a model for today. If you look at the history of any single YouTube video, you'll probably see that a mobile referral happened on its first day, and is starting to drive real traffic. And where we're putting pre-rolls onto mobile, you know, we just have to think, what do we actually want to happen after that pre-roll? For a lot of the time, you know, it ends up being non-clickable stuff. But you know, it's not going to be long before we start to get a lot more interactive with what we're doing with video on mobile.
Yeah, just on mobile, yeah. Definitely, this is a very growing space, growing rapidly. And today what we see is that publishers that wanted to go on video like 2 years ago are having the same idea for mobile. So there's no real strategy, and the lack maybe of standards, even that there will be solved in shorter terms, should help definitely to have the mobile space achievable for video very soon. So. But this is definitely the strategy for today, for anyone, for any advertiser, or even publishers. So there is desktop, mobile, and tomorrow connected TV, as all will be linked, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there's a wonderful quote from, 2 actually very good quotes from Eric Schmidt, both from last year, I think it was. The first one being, Google are now designing everything mobile first, and you know what, if they're doing it and you're not, kind of thing, they probably know a bit more than you do, in honesty. And the second one is that if you don't have a mobile strategy, you don't have a future strategy. And again, I think that's an unbelievably important way to think about it, because you know, you're no longer, we're no longer seeing kind of feature phones in the market. They are being starting to be taken off the shelves. Smartphone penetration is now at what, 40% in the UK. We're probably going to be about 55% early in the new year. And video data that is going through these phones is shooting up. You know, huge growth. And if you think that somebody who has an iPhone or an Android phone isn't going to be watching video, then I'm going to hazard a guess that probably you're mistaken.
Okay, I have to throw out the big wide open question. What does the future look like in the next 2, 3, 4 years for all of this monetization? I mean, you wouldn't be here if you didn't see it. So what does it look like?
I don't see it.
You don't see it? Darn.
No, I'm serious. This space changes and moves so fast that I think, you know, the play-to-win strategy for the next 3 years is that's more of a wish list than a to-do list. I think the play-to-play strategy or the play-to-win strategy for the next 6 months is really driving the evangelization of, you know, we've been talking about standards. So what we didn't talk about was that if we do have VAST and VPaid, which are these standards, but the problem with VAST and VPaid is that agencies will only adopt them if there's critical mass of use on the publisher side. Publishers will only adopt them if there's volume of revenue that can be put through them. And so you do have this chicken and egg thing, sort of like building a network, and how do you, you know, when you get there, we're just getting there with VAST. We're starting to get there with VPaid. There's technical complications there, and that's a whole different conversation, but we'll slowly get there. I do think what we need to do quickly is standardize around the right ad formats, and that's probably a year to a year and a half away. Whose job is that? I don't know. Shameless plug for, you know, the ID Video Council myself are co-chairing it, and one of our main initiatives is to drive educational value of online video and for the mid and long tail. So we hold meetings, encourage you to come. Jen, but there's a wealth of information that the IB actually does do a pretty good job of the events it puts on and the outputs of information that are very, very helpful.
Rather than kind of say, what does the future look like in 3 years, I think it's probably better to look at the successful marketeer in 3 years' time and think that they're going to be saying, you know what, I'm glad I got in early and I tested and I learned and I worked out how to do it whilst it was still affordable to make mistakes, rather than waiting and then having to get it right the first time.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a field of dreams kind of conversation where if you build it, they'll come. And I think if you build it right, you drive behavior. And I think ultimately allows a lot of buzzwords and a lot of platforms and a lot of emerging tools and a lot of emerging technologies that, you know, frankly, I think those are the areas where it will remain to be seen what survives. But I think IP delivered content is here to stay. It's just a function of who can build it right, who can attract the largest audience with both high quality experience and repeatability. And from there, you can build a real business over the top. So I think the next, you know, the very near term is to build a good foundation. You know, don't buy into all the hype around different platforms and different devices. Lock in on what is going to get you the highest number of eyeballs with the highest quality experience and own that niche. And then as the market matures and there's different vehicles that prove themselves out, move in those directions. But don't move in too many at once because the cost will kill you.
Definitely. The 2 points I see that publishers should be focusing on is really first managing very well, extremely well actually their content and how this content is being delivered to users. At the end, what we all want is happy users. Happy users look at ads, happy users click on ads, and they follow your content all through. So if you don't manage properly all this content delivery and this proper advertising, as today all the tools for specific targeting, for the right time to deliver an ad are available, this is where publishers should be focusing today. It's really all about the knowledge and understanding how the market, rather than saying what's happening in 3 years.
I think as we're nearing the end, I would like to thank you and then open it up for questions here from the audience. Hang on, we'll get the mic for you here.
Hello, I'm Thomas Avaden from Video Agency. I would like to ask you, do you have samples of publishers who are doing it right now in any kind of category of content, pure player, TV or whatever? Do you have some samples about some people who do produce a lot of good videos and who make money out of it?
Probably the most shameless plug you'll hear all day. I think Tremor are doing some good things.
So Tremor doesn't do anything. And I mean, on the publisher side, I mean that. We provide value to publishers that do it right. And we work with publishers and we sort of, on a consultative basis, help them. So I think if you think about what Conviva does from a technical perspective, we do from a media perspective. We try and give publishers information and insights as to how they can structure their media strategy to be most effective and most lucrative for themselves. I think there's 2 different types of publishers you need to think about. We were talking about earlier, so Discovery Communications, a massive global provider of quality broadcast content. They've got archives of years and years and years of really quality in-demand programming. I mean, it doesn't have the same brand cachet here, but Shark Week in the United States is, there are advertisers that will own that wherever it travels, UGC, non-UGC. It could be in a garbage can on the street, and advertisers will want to be around it because it's just such a powerful branding tool. And so if you've got a brand like that and you've got broadcast content that you can just repurpose for digital, and it's different than repurposing advertising for digital. Broadcast content, and content will usually always be linear. Now there may be interactive content, but that's a totally different story. But the content that they can repurpose and use online is valuable to them. Now if you're not a broadcaster, you don't have that content, the question becomes, again, this goes back to the cost of producing content specifically for the web which can be very expensive. Those costs have come down in the last 2 years. I'm not an expert on that, so I don't know how to comment on that. But I do think from an ad ratio perspective, what we've seen is consumers are willing to watch ads in lengths of 30 seconds or less in exchange for the ability to watch free premium content. That's the best we've come up with today.
Do you have any names of publishers?
That do it right?
Any names of publishers? I know Machinima in US.
Yeah.
Is doing really well.
I think MTV, Viacom, is a company that fully understands broadcast, fully understands digital, is doing a great job of protecting the value of their content.
Other questions?
Hi, Lippe from LiveStation. We specialize in live content and we do a bit of advertising. What kind of developments do you see in the market, both on the technical side in terms of formats and targeting, all that kind of stuff, as well as from the buyer side, interest in advertising against live?
Well, live is a subject that is coming up more and more often from the publisher perspective. After there's all depends if there's right issues and stuff like this. In terms of advertising, everybody is really looking at what kind of advertising it should be, how it should be managed. They're already struggling sometimes on non-live content. So on live, right now we are really looking at very simple advertising type of format. But yet it still has to be defined. I don't know what kind of format you are delivering. Is it
Pre-roll.
pre-roll? Yeah. Yeah, but now if we go in live, we need to go, well, the request is to go and to be more sophisticated. So either you are linked into your TV broadcasting and it's a switch between the TV ad and the online ad. Is it the same advertiser, not the same advertiser? Should it be linear? Should it be interactive? There's still a lot of questions on how users will behave, and there's still a lot of tests to do to understand how advertising is going to fit to the audience, and without losing it.
The reason live has not worked for us, and it's a function of live. It's exactly what you're saying, is that on broadcast with live programming, there's cuts to commercial breaks. There's official timeouts in American football. There's halftime in football in the UK. And there's scheduled opportunities for commercials. In live digital is usually concerts or live streamed events where there's very little control over the actual content of the live event. And so what you end up doing is interrupting the consumer experience because you're cutting out the actual event to overlay a pre-roll, which is a terrible user experience. And so that's a tricky one. I think in order to make live work, you really need to own both the rights to the advertising as well as the content so that you can control when those ads get played.
Okay, thank you. One in the back.
Hello, my name is John. I'm from the Norwegian portal Startsiden. I guess I'm asking for a prediction again, but do you think the move towards connected TV will inspire brands to make more branded content and viral video campaigns?
Undoubtedly. We're already seeing some of the testing we've been doing over the last 5-6 months with Virgin TiVo, where we've got longer form content within that. We're genuinely rivaling sort of the more traditional video content. And some of the results that we're seeing are very, very promising.
I think we have time maybe for one more. Well, without another question, I'd like to thank our panel. It was very informative for me, and thank you for the attendees, and hope you have a great conference, and we'll see you on the floor.